Assalamualaikum and very good day to our lecturer, Madam Myra Kamaluddin, and to everyone present. My name is Muhammad HILMI bin ABDULLAH. We are from Section C, and today our group will be presenting our Southeast Asia Literature project titled Negotiating Love versus Social Obligation and Class Boundaries, a study of Indonesian poem, short story, and film. Our group member are Muhammad HAZIQ AIMAN bin Muhammad HISHAM, Muhammad HILMI bin ABDULLAH, Nur SHAFIKAH binti SHAZMAN, and INSYIRAH binti TAUFIK. In this Anthology, we explore how Indonesian literature would portray the conflict between personal love, social obligation, and class boundaries. These themes are often appear in Indonesian literature because individuals frequently struggle between following their personal feeling and fulfillment of societal expectation. Literature has been long used as medium for writers to express social issue, cultural value, and emotional experience. In Indonesian literature, many works highlight the tension between individual desire and societal expectation, particularly in relationship and personal choice. For example, love is often portrayed as a powerful emotion force that encourages individuals to pursue happiness. However, in many cases, this pursuit is restricted by tradition, family expectation, social class, or even spiritual belief. As a result, characters in Indonesian literature would frequently experience emotion dilemmas when they must choose between their personal feeling and their responsibility to society. This theme can be seen in many Indonesian literature works across different genres. Portray often express emotion struggles such as longing, separation, devotion, and reflection on life. Meanwhile, prose and film frequently portray social pressures such as class differences, family authority, and gender role. Therefore, this literature anthology aims to explore how Indonesian writers portray the struggle between love, social responsibility, and structural boundaries that shape human relationships. Our analysis focuses on 4 poems, 2 short stories, and 1 film. The poem analysis are Aku Ingin by Sapardi Djoko Damono, Derai-Derai Cemara, and Cintaku Jauh di Pulau by Chairil Anwar, and Padamu Jua by Amir Hamzah. In addition, this study also examines the short story Siti Nurbaya and Diana Yang Tak Kunjung Padam, as well as the Indonesian film Kartini. Though these selected works, we aim to understand how Indonesian literature reflects the emotional, social conflict that individuals experience when navigating love within the boundaries of society. Thank you. Now, I will pass the presentation to HAZIQ, who will continue the next section.
Good day and welcome to today's literary report. My name is Muhammad HAZIQ AIMAN bin Muhammad HISHAM, and in this segment, we will explore how Indonesian literature reflects the struggle between love, social obligation, and class boundaries. These texts reveal how personal relationships are often shaped and restricted by societal expectation. Indonesia's literary landscape is deeply influenced by its cultural diversity, historical development, and complex social structure. As a country with many ethnic groups, language, and traditions, Indonesian literature often reflects values such as honor, family responsibility, and social hierarchy. These elements play a crucial role in shaping how relationships are portrayed, especially in the context of love. In many Indonesian literary works, love is not simply a personal emotion, but is closely connected to social expectation and class boundaries. Individuals often face conflicts between pursuing their own happiness and fulfilling obligations to their family or society. Even in modern Indonesian literature, these themes continue to be relevant. Writers often depict how love is restricted by financial conditions, family expectation, and social inequality. This shows that the tension between individual desire and societal expectation remains a significant issue in Indonesian society. That is all about the literary background of Indonesia from me. Thank you.
My name is TAUFIK, and let me begin with the writers who shaped Indonesian literature and storytelling. So the first poet, Syaril Anwar, often called the father of modern Indonesian poetry, lived a short but extraordinary life. He lived up to 27 years old. His poems broke away from traditional forms, using free verse and bold imagery to capture both existential struggles and nationalist spirit. His works like Aku and the Rai Cemara shows how he transformed poetry into voice of independence. Sapardi Djoko Damono is remembered for his lyrical contemplative style. His collection Hujan Bulan Juni is iconic, reflecting themes of love, time, and human reflection. Sapardi's poetry is simple yet profound, and it continues to resonate with readers today, even beyond literature throughout adaptation in music and film. Marvelously, writing much earlier, Keva Siti Nurbaya, this novel is a powerful critique of arranged marriage and constraints of adat or customary law. His work marked a turning point in Indonesian post-moving literature toward realism and social critique. Sultan Takdir Ali Jahbana was not only a novelist but also a cultural thinker. His novel Layar Terkembang promoted women's emancipation and modernization, and his role in founding Poet Jangka Baru magazine made him a central figure in shaping modern Indonesian literature, alongside with the fact that he championed Bahasa Indonesia as a unifying national language. Alongside with these literary figures, there is Bagus Pramanti and Hanung Bramantyo. They are the screenwriters of Kartini 2017. Their work on the film Kartini demonstrates how storytelling has expanded beyond the page into cinema, bringing historical narrative into life for a modern audience. Not just like Syaril Anwar and Sapardi, Pramanti and Bramantyo uses film script to reinterpret Indonesia's past and highlight themes of gender, class, and emancipation. So when we look at these authors and screenwriters together, we see a progression from Syaril Anwar's modernist poetry to Sapardi's lyrical reflection to Mara Rosli's social critique and Ali Sabana push for modernization. And we finally have Pramanti and Bramantyo's cinematic storytelling. Each of them contributed to evolving identity of Indonesia literature and culture. So that is all from me.
Good day, you are watching Literary News Network. I'm your presenter SHAFIKAH to SHAZMAN, bringing you a special report on a newly examined literary anthology that is reshaping how we understand love in Indonesian literature. With this focus, we are covers and highlight two significant poems, which is Aku Ingin and the Rai Cemara. And this work reveals how love is not only an emotional experience, but also deeply influenced by the society, time, and personal restraints. So let us begin with Aku Ingin by Sapardi Djoko Damono, which is published in 1994. So Sapardi Djoko Damono is widely known for his simple yet profound poetic style. His work often explores themes of love, longing, and quiet emotional and reflections. In this poem, he moves away from dramatic expressions of love and instead presents something more subtle and serious. The central theme of Aku Ingin is simple and genuine love. The famous line, which is Aku ingin mencintaimu dengan sepenuh hati, clearly shows that love does not need to be grand or excessive. Instead, it can exist in small or meaningful ways. This reflects a form of love that is pure, profound and deeply personal. Another important theme which is found in the poem is unspoken emotions. Through the phrase like kata yang tak sempat diucapkan and rasa yang tak sempat dimengerti, the poem suggests that not all feelings can be expressed or understood. Love, in this sense, becomes something internal, felt deeply, but not always communicated. From this, we can identify key issues present in the poem. First, it is the issues of personal desire versus limitations. The speakers want to love really, but something prevents full expression, whether it is emotion or hesitations, cultural expectations, or social boundaries. Secondly, the poem highlights love as endurance. Love is not portrayed as something that must be returned or fulfilled. Instead, it is something that's continued quietly, even when it's not acknowledged. It shows emotional, spirit, and patience, suggesting that true love can exist without recognition. So we now move to the second poem, which is Derai-Derai Cemara by Chairil Anwar, which is written in 1949. Chairil Anwar is one of Indonesia's most influential modern poets, known for his bold and expressive. However, this poem presents a different tone, one that is more reflective and mature, written near the end of his life. The first major theme in this poem is the passage of time and emotional maturity. In the line, "Aku sekarang orangnya bisa tahan," the speaker shows that he has changed. He is no longer driven by impulsive emotions, but instead has learned to control his feelings. And this reflects the transition from youth to elderhood. Another theme is unspoken and unfulfilled love. Similar to Aku Ingin, this poem also suggests that certain emotion remains hidden. The line, "Ada yang tetap tidak terucapkan," indicates that love is not always expressed openly and may remain incomplete. In terms of issues, the poem strongly presents the conflict between personal desires and social obligations. As individuals grow older, they are expected to have responsibility and control their emotions. Love, therefore, becomes something that must retain rather than fully express. And additionally, the poem introduces an existential perspective on life and love. The powerful line, "Hidup hanya menunda kekalahan," suggests that life is temporary and ultimately limited. And this idea extends to love, implying that love too is affected by time, reality, and inevitable endings. In conclusions, this literary anthology reveals a deeper understanding of love through the two poems. Aku Ingin presents love and simple, sincere, and quietly enduring, even when unspoken. Meanwhile, Derai-Derai Cemara portrays love and restraint, shaped by maturity and influenced by life reality. Together, both poems highlight an important insight. Love is not always freely expressed. It is often shaped and sometimes limited by social expectation, emotional control, and the passage of time. That's all for this report. We continue with the other reports. Thank you.
Now, back with me. Next, I will continue with analysis of two poems, Cintaku Jauh di Pulau by Chairil Anwar and Padamu Jua by Amir Hamzah. First, let us look at Cintaku Jauh di Pulau by Chairil Anwar. One of the major themes in this poem is romantic longing and separation. The speaker expressed the deep love for someone who located far away on an island. The distance between lovers symbolizes both physical separation and emotional longing. This can be seen in the opening line, "Cintaku jauh di pulau, gadis manis sekarang iseng sendiri." This line describes how beloved is left alone on a distant island, emphasize the pain of separation and the emotional distance between the lover. Another important theme of this poem is destiny and mortality. As poem progresses, the speaker describes a journey across the sea to reunite with their beloved. However, the journey is suddenly interrupted by death, which appear as powerful force. This is shown in the following line. Ajal bertahta sambil berkata, tujukan perahu ke pangkuanku sahaja. Here death is personified, meaning it's given human qualities. Death become an avoidable force that interrupt the speaker's hope and dream. This highlights the tragic conflict between human desire and inevitability of death. Next, we move to the poem Padamu Jua by Amir Hamzah. Unlike previous poem, which is focused on romantic love, this poem explores spiritual love and devoting to God. In this poem, the speaker reflects the limitation of worldly love and eventually return to spiritual devotion. This idea can be seen in the line, habis kikis, segala cintaku hilang terbang, pulang kembali aku padamu. This line suggests that human attachment may fade over time, but ultimately, the speaker finds peace by returning to God. Another important issue presented in the poem is contrast between human limitation and divine power. The speaker recognizes the human beings are imperfect and often overwhelmed by their emotion. This can be seen in this line, aku manusia, rindu rasa, rindu rupa. The repetition of the word rindu emphasizes the intensity of human longing. At the same time, it highlights vulnerability of human being compared to the perfection of the divine. Overall, both portraits illustrate different forms of conflict, while Cintaku Jauh di Pulau portrays the struggle between love, distance, and death. Padamu Jua explores the tension between worldly emotion and spiritual devotion. This poem demonstrates how Indonesian poetry reflects deeper philosophical questions about love, fate, and human condition. Thank you.
Back with me. This time, it is about an analysis about two short stories. Let us now turn to the first short story, which is Siti Nurbaya. This story, written by Marah Rusli in 1922, is considered one of the most important works in Indonesian literature. Marah Rusli is known for highlighting this conflict between traditional customs and modern values, particularly in relation to social inequality. The story follows the tragic love between Siti Nurbaya and Samsul Bahri. Their relationship is disrupted when Samsul Bahri leaves to continue his study, leaving Siti Nurbaya vulnerable to Datuk Meringeh. Due to her father's financial debt, she is forced into marriage with him. As a result, their love is destroyed, not because of a lack of sincerity, but because of external pressures imposed by society. This story clearly reflects the theme of love versus social obligation and class boundaries. Siti Nurbaya is forced to sacrifice her love in order to fulfill her duty to her family, showing how social obligation takes precedence over personal happiness. According to Ulrich and Sahidin 2022, the novel demonstrates how traditional systems often prioritize collective interests over individual desires. In addition, the story also reveals issues of patriarchy and gender inequality. Siti Nurbaya has little control over her own life, as decisions about her marriage are influenced by male authority and economic pressure. Hasanah and Adawiyah 2021 explain that women in Indonesian literature are often portrayed as virtuous but restricted. This shows that love is not only limited by social obligation and class, but also by gender expectation. Next, we move to another important work named as Dian Yang Tak Kunjung Padam. Dian Yang Tak Kunjung Padam, written by Sultan Takdir Alis Jahbana, focuses on the tension between tradition and individual freedom. Alis Jahbana is known for his modernist ideas and his critical view of social structures. The story revolves around Yasin, a poor young man, and Molek, a girl from a noble family. Despite their genuine love, their relationship is rejected due to difference in social status. Mohamad's parents force her to marry someone of higher status, leading to a tragic ending. This shows that love is unable to overcome rigid social boundaries. This also strongly reflects the theme of love versus social obligation and class boundaries. It can be seen when Mohamad, who is expected to obey her parents and marry within her social class, shows her family authority and tradition control personal relationship. Lantowa 2020 explains that such conflicts represent the struggle between individual feelings and societal expectation. Class boundaries are even more explicit in this story. Mohamad's noble status makes her incompatible with Yasin, regardless of his sincerity and character. This demonstrates that social hierarchy determines the legitimacy of relationships. Abbas 2020 notes that class distinction in literature reflects deeply rooted social ideologies that reinforce inequality. The story also highlights issues of gender and social control. Mohamad is forced to suppress her feelings in order to maintain her family's honor, showing how women are expected to uphold social order. Abbas 2020 further explained that noble women in Indonesian literature are often restricted by social expectation. Therefore, the story shows that love is powerless against the combined force of social obligation and class hierarchy. In conclusion, both Siti Nobaya and Dian Yang Tak Kunjung Padam clearly demonstrate how love is often restricted by social obligation and class boundaries in Indonesian society. In both stories, relationships fail not because of a lack of love, but because of societal systems that prioritize tradition, hierarchy, and authority. These works highlight the need to question rigid social structures that limit individual freedom. Ultimately, Indonesian literature provides a powerful reflection of how personal emotions are shaped and sometimes suppressed by the demands of society. Thank you for joining me in this analysis.
Now let's turn to the film Kartini, directed by Hanung Bramantyo, produced by Robert Roni and written by Bagus Bramanti. Together with Hanung Bramantyo, this film dramatized the life of Raden Ajeng Kartini, a Japanese aristocrat who fought for women's rights and education in early 20th century. The film highlights the tension between love and social obligation. Kartini is confined by pinitan, the tradition of selection for noble women, and faces pressure to marry for status rather than affection. In one scene, she reflects, love cannot be forced, but obligation always demands our submission. This line captures the central conflict. Due to personal desire is constantly subordinated to our duty. Class boundaries are another major theme here. Kartini's aristocratic position gave her privilege, but it also restricts her choices. So when she tells her father, I want to be free to choose my own path, not merely a tool to preserve family honor, she voices the struggle of women who are trapped by both gender and class expectation. What makes this film powerful is that continued negotiation of love become a form of resistance. By insisting on education and refusing to marry solely for status, she redefines intimacy as a political act. The film situates her personal struggle within a broader feminist discourse, showing that emancipation requires challenging both patriarchal tradition and aristocratic hierarchies. Together, this film and the authors I discussed earlier highlight the richness of Indonesian cultural production. Literature and cinema both serve as mirrors of society, documenting historical struggles while inspiring new generations to think critically about identity, modernity, and social justice. And I think that is all from me. Thank you.
Good day. We return with the final update on the literary anthology titled Negotiating Love versus Social Obligation and Class Boundaries. As the study reached in conclusion, which is major finding, have now confirmed, revealing how Indonesian literature consistently portrays love as something deeply influenced and often restricted by social expectations. The anthology concludes that across poem, short story, and film, there is recurring conflicts between personal love and societal demands. Love is not simply an emotional experience, but one that is constantly negotiated between cultural tradition, family expectations, and class structures. Through the analysis of love by writers Taufik Joko Damono, and Karen Anua as well as narrative and film representations, the anthology confirms that individuals often face emotional dilemmas, forced to choose between personal happiness and social responsibility. Further development shows that social obligations plays as the dominant source in shaping relationships. Cultural traditions, family authority, and past expectation frequently limits freedom in love, especially in contexts such as arranged marriage, gender roles, and aristocratic systems. At the same time, the anthology highlights that love is not entirely powerless in several words. Love becomes a form of resistance against societal constraints, whether through silent embrace, emotional sacrifice, or personal suffering. Writers continue to explore love despite restriction. In addition, the study emphasized the role of class boundaries in determining relationships. Love is often influenced by social status, where individuals are judged not by emotional connections, but by academic position and family background. This reinforces inequality and limits personal choice. In its final statement, the anthology confirms that Indonesian literature serves as a reflection of real societal conditions where love is continually stitched by duty, tradition, and hierarchy. The conclusion is clear. Love in Indonesian literature is not free, it is shaped, challenged, and sometimes restricted by the powerful force of society. That concludes this special coverage on the literature anthology, and thank you for staying with us in this list. Thank you.